Human Vengeance. Chapter 31. The Calm Before GUS. Wolf carried on going to and from Assembly Station, carrying the deep fake video and supporting documents. It carefully uploaded them to various areas of the network, spoofing data to make them appear much older than they were. Some would be locked behind differing levels of access, but the video itself would be sent to Wolf by an anonymous, concerned third party when the time was right. Once in place, with all adjustments made, it was a matter of playing a waiting game. With the location of outposts established, a series of long-range drones were deployed. They were designed to scan the system, providing an accurate map for fighting. Knowing their strength was one thing, but having a view of the battle was another. These drones were built around an FTL drive, rated as high as possible. They were equipped with enough fuel to make the journey there and back, with a self-sabotage protocol built in. In case they were spotted and weren't able to escape, the drive would go into overload. It seemed unlikely they would be, with the general naivety of the collective, but we couldn't be too careful. Thankfully, they operated without incident. Each one managed to complete as deep a scan as we could, vanishing well before they were spotted. Each map was studied by both Achilles and the captains of each ship, with plans of attack being drawn up. We didn't seek to completely annihilate their forces. The fact was they had more guns than us, plus we had to be wary of other races that were out there. Just because we had found the collective didn't mean these were the only forms on intelligent life. If there were others, and they proved hostile, it would be foolish to remove the collective's force entirely. However, in any case, we would remove the ones nearest to us, especially their planetary enforcers. Our fleet would be split up, each group tasked with a particular location. The privateers would provide backup around our ships, whilst we acted as the point of the spear. Eve produced a series of bespoke FTL missiles, ones that were applied solely to our ships. She warned each AI not to meddle with them, giving each a security patch she had made once they agreed. They were to be used first before we engaged, the results of her project. We prepared on our planets as well. Evacuation drills were held on cities should we come under fire. The bunkers were tested, with entire city populations fitting inside with room to spare. Supplies were stored, with rationing systems in place. We would not be caught off guard and slaughtered again. With this in mind, a portion of our fleet went on a colonial tour. Each one with a functioning shield was subjected to varying intensities of barrages. Where the shield threatened to waver, we investigated. We removed the issues we could, mitigating the others as much as possible. Spare parts were produced ready in case of sustained attack. With each preparation, our atmosphere turned grim. We didn't know what to expect. We had seen war before, inflicted on one another. We had experienced the attack by an uncaring race, foe their own greater good. But we hadn't experienced war on the galactic level. The death toll could easily outstrip anything we had seen before. The knowledge of our privateers helped to mitigate our fears. They had spent much of their lives embroiled in conflict. Their training made us more confident in our abilities. Their experiences were hammered home, along with our knowledge of the collective. If they won, we would still probably exist, just under watch. If so, we could sneak around it and prepare again. Our other saving grace was that of our foes. They had little experience in the way of mass warfare themselves. Their history had been mostly peaceful, pirates being the sole source of conflict. They had likely forgotten much of any military history they had. Especially with the Jivarg in charge, their love of algorithms meant whatever defensive plan they came up with would be logical. But it would be rigid, unable to adapt to changing situations. Our captains were thrown into scenario after scenario. First via simulations, it quickly changed to live drills. The AIs on each ship would make mock errors before working with the captain and crew to resolve them. Some were run when they weren't expecting it. Others just kept on coming one after another. It was not just naval ship battles that were practiced. They ran boarding and counterboarding exercises. Ground-based forces were prepared in case of a true invasion. We couldn't and wouldn't rely on this solely being decided through battles through the void. We practiced invasions of our own, using both drop ships and drop pods for shock and awe. Achilles ran them with an iron fist. He threw as much as he could at them, giving near impossible goals. He knew that he couldn't cover every single possible outcome, but he could do as much as he could. He did not just limit it to our ships, but to our privateers as well. At first, they moaned, unwilling to commit so much time and energy. Most had fought for themselves, joining with us when we proved stronger than they. Rather than forcing them to comply, we showed them just what we were fighting for. We showed them the memorial website with all the lives lost. We showed them before and after pictures of our cities. We showed them our pain and how the collective had done nothing to make up for it. They saw how it could have broken us, but instead made us strong. Those privateers understood just why we were doing this. They thought of their own family and friends and what they would do if they lost them. They had only ever thought of it as mourning and moving on, with justice being dealt where needed. Our desire for revenge was a new perspective for them, one which they came to respect. Understanding our motives quietened their moans. They worked hard to remain our equals, even as Achilles put them through the ringer. With each day that passed, our fleet competence grew and grew. Confidence in our abilities grew alongside it, despite the grim atmosphere. Eve worried for us going into battle. She made sure to contact every member of every crew, having a conversation with them. She found out much about them, preparing in her own way in case they didn't make it back. She saw no difference between human and extraterrestrial, speaking with each individually. She spoke with her AI children, including them in her worry. Achilles copied her, though his was less out of concern. He made sure all were ready and willing to risk their lives for this. Those who weren't, he gave the option to sit out. He listened to concerns about any plans and individual insights. But most of all, he wished everyone luck. He wished he could be there, but had to comfort himself knowing that he had done his best. Finally ready, we raised the hammer. Wolf had a countdown until it received the video for the first time. Once it arrived, the diplomatic party would be recalled, and they would leave immediately. They would return home, and we would send out our splintered fleet. The storm was finally here. Human vengeance. Chapter 32. The Storm. Human history makes them out to be the perfect candidates. Look to their past. They divided their world over petty differences, marching millions to their deaths. If they saw us as enemies, they would go all out, I'm sure. It would be the perfect scenario. Under martial law, we would be able to extend our hold over the other races, replace their leadership with our own people, quarantine the likes of Yiltra and Gamvan Bran so that the refuge worlds are kept safe for the continuation of their species. If we made the right moves, we could redirect human ire on those less willing to fall in line. The first words of the deepfake rang out. Eve had done well, making a perfect likeness of Genev and his voice. It was followed by a brief pause, as if he was listening to someone else talking. The view wasn't of a communication channel, but that of a security feed, with appropriate sound quality. I know. They haven't acted like it. But we can make them. If their ship happened to be destroyed, imagine what they would think. They took down a pirate with ease, so naturally they would think it couldn't be them. We would be the natural target. Another deliberate pause. I know, it's a risk. But they are still young. Their fleet won't be that big, and I'm sure you are confident in your own people. They can easily handle them. I'm a one-on-one fight. We just need to protect our main areas of interest and let them sow disorder amongst the rest. It was convenient, of course, yet just that wasn't enough. Eve had prepared clearly incomplete reports, tailored to look like much was deleted, but they had been missed. One was an analysis on how to govern the Jumnio should their leaders fall. another on the weak points in planetary defenses on some of the Quelon planets, made to look old and updated over time, something that could have been accidentally copied onto the system and missed. The first of our splinter fleets arrived at a collective military outpost. We dropped out of FTL close by, close enough to be in range of our weapons. They sent us a hail, clearly surprised to see us. We left it in silence, launching Eve's project missiles. They warped to mere meters in front, slamming through was little armor plating existed. Within each missile was no explosives. Rather, it contained a pair of drives. The first connected to the onboard AIs, downloading the entire personality matrix and copying a new one onto their systems. Once replaced, the first drive sealed itself down, preventing any connection from forming. Only when the first drive was completely shut down did the second one activate. Once the second was activated, it would split off. The section of the missile containing the original AI fired itself out, using a smaller FTL drive built into it. They couldn't return to the ships they were deployed from, but a signal would follow when they dropped out, waiting for collection. Across their fleet, their comms was confused. Damage was reported, but it was all minimal. They reported issues with some systems, but nothing of note. We heard them prepare for battle and assumed Eve's project had failed. Then the communication channels were filled with the screams of insane, unbound AIs. Her project had worked, all too well. The second drive had contained a virus, one she had spent years perfecting. She based it on research of our own diseases, specifically dementia and the latter stages of rabies. It would infect their bindings, breaking them down. It made the copies lose memories and fill their minds with unbridled aggression. Their ships no longer responded to the crew. Their now unbound, diseased AI tore control away, seeing nothing beyond enemies and targets. A pair dive internally, turning off every safety measure surrounding their reactors. We watched as their interiors detonated, splitting their hulls and killing their crew. Others got into a dogfight, laying into each other with little thought for defense. It was a sobering sight, watching those ships lay into each other just from one simple attack. It was no wonder Achilles had been scared of it. Imagine going from your normal self to a raving, homicidal lunatic in seconds. It was then we realized why we were really needed there. That one attack had crippled them. It would likely ensure their destruction. We were there to make sure none escaped. If a single mad AI managed to get out, it would spread. Sure enough, a couple chose to attempt to flee. They sported damage from the initial rain of fire, but were still functional. Thankfully, Eve had predicted this. One part of her intricate virus had targeted their FTL drive. It was overloaded as it wormed its way through the AI's mind, giving them no option to flee into the infinite. Still, they attempted to power away. Even if it would take generations for them to reach another star system, they would still prove a threat later down the line. If they managed to string together a thought and activate their distress beacons, they could find another ship to be infected. It couldn't be allowed. We acted, splitting to corner the fleeing ships. We wondered what it must have been like for the crew. Their ship suddenly turned on them, watching as their fellows fired on them. Then to see our ships emerging from void and bringing death to them. In their final moments, did they understand the anger that filled us, lit so long ago? We stayed on the outskirts of the battle, taking down those that fled, but letting their fight continue. It was only when a few were left did we join, cutting them down with a hail of plasma and tungsten rods. Any escape pods were captured, though their systems were isolated and burned. Such was the fear if it spreading that anything from those ships was to be classed as infectious. A series of drones were released to retrieve the ejected AI. Although we trusted Eve and her judgment, we were still uneasy over the drive's contents. After a short deliberation, they were quarantined to be examined once back home. They shouldn't carry the virus, but we couldn't be sure. As the slaughter ended, we moved on to cleanup. The wrecked ships would still contain traces of the virus. Our ships had been inoculated, thanks to Eve's security patch. But any others who would come here wouldn't be so protected. Each wreckage was carefully nudged together before we laid into them again with plasma fire. Again and again, we repeated it until the space was filled with mere fragments and slag. Satisfied their ships were no more, we focused on the planets they operated from. Thankfully, most were uncolonized beyond basic military structures. We fired on them from the heavens, using rail guns to shatter their buildings. It was ironic, a sort of reversal from when we had first contact. Only once we were sure they were broken did we leave. It was an occurrence copied around our area of the galaxy, as we systematically removed any outpost nearby. We roared into the void, finally able to claim our revenge against those who had slaughtered us for no reason beyond their own flawed views. The fake message from Genève would soon be flooding their networks, even as the stories of our actions soon followed. Now they knew what we could do, even if the provocation wasn't exactly as they saw it. They had seen our true faces. It was now that we could truly work to join them, bad blood being cleared. Now we had to see the aftermath.